It's Aquarium Monday on Daily Download. Whoa, didn't see you guys there. We're too busy enjoying this beautiful exhibit with the shark coming right past us. We are at the Two Oceans Aquarium for your Aquarium Monday with Tinus. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing really well. I feel a lot better now on Monday. Now that we're here in front of this beautiful exhibit, who are these guys who are coming right in front of us?
Those two chaps are dusky cob, and actually looks, probably a female and a male.
Okay. So I see they have like dots going along. And does that serve a purpose of any kind, or is it just decoration?
That long line of little scales that look like mirrors, it's actually a scale that sits at a slightly different angle to the rest. It reflects light differently. That's why we see the dots. But at the same time, what happens, those scales are, if you look closely, there's a fine line that connects all of them. And it's called it's a sensory cells that sits along those lines. It's a sideline organ, so it's little specialized cells like hair cells. It's like a pitted cell with a bit of jelly filled in a hair trigger. And what it does, it senses pressure differences in the water. It's very common to find those in shoaling species. So next time that you find a fresh pilchard, have a look, even them, they've got those little dots on the side, and they've got that sideline cell organ. And what it does in shoaling fish, it's called a lateral line. Have a look, there's some yellowtail coming by. And once, if you look from the top of a gill cover behind the head, they've got the same thing. It looks like a scratch mark running across the body.
Yeah.
For a fish that's shoaling, when in close proximity, when a fish moves its body, water's not very compressible. It sets up a shock wave in the water. And the next fish, those cells are very sensitive. It can pick that up. It senses the pressure difference. And that's why when you look at shoals of fish, when they move, they often move coordinated. And how they do that, it's really by sensing that change in water pressure is almost instantaneous. For shoaling fish species at night, they close up ranks, and the shoal swims much closer together. Just on that, by the by, you didn't ask me, let me just tell you for interest sake.
Sure.
People often want to know if fish sleep, and how do they sleep?
Right.
Because they don't have eyelids.
No.
Can't close its eye.
Okay.
What I always explain to people, the best way to think about it, when you and I drive somewhere, you go for a long drive on a Sunday, have you noticed sometimes one becomes aware that you've been driving for 20 minutes, but you can't actually quite recall what you've seen? Yep, just quick. Something sped up, something happened. Bit of a thing that goes bump in the night.
Just give me a fright.
That's a perfect example that lateral line I talked about just now.
Yes.
What often happens in the tank is if a fish somewhere reacts slightly and it puts up a shockwave, most fish, all of them, they'll react.
So it's like a chain reaction.
And after they've reacted, it's like when you and I get a fright, a loud noise goes off, you jump, and then you looked around to see what made me jump.
Yes.
It's the same sort of analogy. So somewhere in a tank, either something got a bit of a fright, went for some food, maybe a shark had a bit of a scratch against the side or something, and everyone reacts and then stop to see what they reacted for. At night time, when the fish are on a sleep in a rest state, that reaction is even more pronounced. Because it's exactly like I explained, you drive a car a long way, and you suddenly become aware, I'm not quite sure what I've seen the last 20 k's. So they sort of sleep with their eyes open. What they just go into a lower state of awareness. They're still awake, but daydreaming.
Is it almost similar to what some animals do when they go into hibernation, when they just slow their metabolisms and stuff down? Is it kind of like that?
Kind of like that, but the metabolism doesn't slow down, just the awareness slows down.
Oh, okay, I see.
So they still swim, but just not as aware.
All right, okay. So we had a little weird scuffle. They gave us a fright. I like how the fish got a fright and then we got a fright, and maybe everyone at home got a fright also. But speaking of the sharks, you said that they scratch sometimes because maybe they go for a fish. But you said that you feed them really well. So is it maybe just out of habit?
Sometimes it's out of habit, but also occasionally they itch like we do. So it's just like you want to scratch your back. But I don't have hands, so I need to scratch up against something. So it has a bit of a scratch. Or what happens in here, the sharks will automatically, even though they get fed well, when a fish are in close contact, so sometimes a fish is too close to a shark, it just gets into the strike range, and the shark can't help himself, it just has a lunge, and the fish gets a bit of a fright.
Right.
And it reacts, and then everyone else reacts.
Okay. Do any of these fish have some battle scars that they got into with the shark?
You will see it occasionally, especially on a cob. Sometimes around the tails, you'll see that there's a couple of scrape marks where a shark had to go and almost got hold of him.
Okay.
Interesting enough, if fish have gotten bitten once, they heal fairly well, but that same fish has got a really good chance to get bitten again because there's a reason why it got bitten in the first instance. It's as a predator, it's not quite as aware of a shark as it should be, and they've got a fairly poor learning response to predation. So
Oh, no.
you'll often find, it's not a case for them once bitten, twice shy, not by any means. It's a case of once bitten, I'm your lollipop.
Oh no! Oh my goodness. Well, I was just watching these fish swim around, and I was thinking, when we are in the water, we often float to the top. So how do fish stay in the middle, so to speak? Do they use a lot of energy to do that?
No, a lot of time they don't. What
Okay.
they've got, sort of central in the body. They've got an organ, most fish. It's called a swim bladder. Okay, and that swim bladder is gas filled, so it's filled with air.
okay.
So what they do as they change their depth,
Right.
they adjust the amount of gas in there to make them more or less buoyant. Because what they're aiming for is neutral buoyancy.
Yes, yes.
There's some physiological differences between sharks and fish. Sharks, for example, they don't have a swim bladder. They don't have a gas-filled space. But sharks have got a really big liver. And their liver stores a lot of fat. And fat is like fat floats. It's like oil.
Yeah, yeah.
So shark livers make up for that. The
I
other thing that's
see.
interesting about it, apart from it, fish have got, where they've got that swim bladder, because it's a gas-filled space, and there's air in there, if you think of a drum, it's also a really good amplifier. You can play it like a
Right.
drum.
Yes, yes.
So a lot of fish they've got small muscles on the swim bladder. They can change the shape of a swim bladder.
Okay.
And it's exactly like you and I playing a drum.
Oh, so they.
And in the water,
Yeah.
I talked earlier about the lateral line that's so
Yes.
good on compression waves.
Yes.
With that swim bladder, they can actually make a noise. So when you dive, you often hear grunts, clicks, whistles, a bit similar to what dolphins do.
Yeah.
And each fish, they've got their own language and make their own sound.
Okay.
And the cob in here, if people ever visit, especially if you're in an aquarium at night on a function, the cob tends to vocalize a lot. They drum its swim bladder all the time and makes this
Wow.
deep droning sound, goes a brrr, brrr, brrr.
Wow.
And it's so strong, you can feel it through acrylic, you can feel it through your feet. In summertime, at peak times, if you stand outside the building,
Yeah.
you can hear it from outside the building. It's amazing.
What are they talking about?
Goodness only knows about what's
Wow.
happening and where's the chicks hanging out.
Exactly. Well, you said that fish have like their own language. Do each species of fish have their own language? So, like a foreigner, because I speak English, but then a French person would speak French. Is it the same for fish?
For cob it is, because they can recognize, they've got their own pitches and frequencies and their own how to say it? Look, it's not a big language. Not you can have a long conversation. What are you up to? It's very much WhatsApp on limited data. Okay? You only say so much. It normally
Right.
says they normally communicate to find a mate, or
Okay.
to warn the others of some danger,
Oh, I see.
or to share a common food source.
Right.
But yeah, so if cob drum at night, for example, only a cob will react to the sound of another cob drumming.
Right.
Nothing else. And like anything else, there might be a few predators listening.
Uh-huh.
So sharks will know, oh, that sounds like cob.
Yeah.
Let me amble over there and see what's
Yeah.
on. That's the other problem. Anything that communicates in the sea,
Yes.
yes, you talk to your own kind, you also shout to everyone else, here I am. And those things are
Right,
food
right.
to other things.
True.
So
true.
it's limited communication.
Okay.
But for the most, yes, fish learn to recognize their own language
Yeah.
pattern, so its species
Okay.
can find each other.
Cool. Well, I see that they're doing.
Ooh, look. It's a little bluefish, cleaner ass.
Yes,
It's on
yes.
the other side of the fish. So what they're doing, they're looking for skin parasites on this chap. It's a yellow belly rocket. So you'll see every now and again they come in and pick it.
Yeah.
It looks like quite irritating, but it's actually not. They're busy cleaning him. See that?
Wow.
They fix his dorsal fin. So if they find a loose parasite, they clean him off.
Do you guys put these little ones in the tank purposefully for that?
We specifically put them in for that.
Okay.
Long story, but to keep it brief, the thing that you find of fish parasites in general, you don't think a bit of fleas on a dog. Fish get the same sort of thing. But the sea itself is a really big place.
True.
So it's having a really big field with relatively little dogs. So most marine parasites have got a life cycle where the parasites produce millions of offspring.
Oh my
But
gosh.
because each one of those little offspring need to find a fish host within 24 hours or die.
Yeah.
But in a tank environment, an aquarium, they don't disperse. So you've got a whole lot of taxis to get onto and not
Right.
limited space. So in aquarium,
True.
generally speaking, if you do get a parasite outbreak, it can get quite bad. So what does CleanRAS do? They just keep the natural population in check.
Yes.
The whole thing is in balance, it's symbiosis.
Yeah.
So you don't want to remove the parasites altogether. They also fulfill a
No,
function.
yeah.
It's just a case of keeping the whole on the level.
Yes.
And
No,
it's a
true.
fairly natural behavior. You'll notice most of the fish know, it's those little fish advertise a cleaning station, and the fish know. So sometimes they'll stop, they'll flare their gills, and the fish will work right inside the gills and pick little
Wow.
parasites. And
It's like a
do its thing.
salon
It is a
for the
salon.
fish.
See,
I
have a look.
love
See,
that.
look, now it's onto a cob.
Yes.
So it picks right in front of its
In
eye
front
and on
of the
top of
eye.
its head, and it's like, yeah, I'll see if there's anything I can clean off you today.
Do they ever clean the predators?
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well?
we do. They'll clean the sharks
Everything.
as well.
But like the sharks won't nip at them because they know.
No, here's the interesting thing. So that little fish in particular is called a blue streak cleaner wrasse.
Okay, yeah.
Most fish advertise who and what they are by their body patterning and their colors.
Oh.
Up in Natal, you find a little fish that's called a cleaner wrasse mimic.
You're right.
It looks very, very, very similar. We can tell because the mouth is terminal, mouth sits on the end. So you have to look carefully, but you can see the difference.
Yes.
Fish generally can't tell the difference. So what the mimic does, it also has this flitting motion like, come, I'll clean you, I'll clean you, I'll clean
Yeah,
you. When
yeah.
the fish gets close by, it takes a whole scale, it takes a chunk of flesh and it runs away.
Goodness.
So it's a real scabanga. It's sort of learned
True.
to mimic a cleaning service,
Exactly.
but it's actually a predator.
Sneaky.
Sneaky.
Well, hopefully we can find more sneaky friends here at the Two Oceans Aquarium. And this is your daily download on Radio 786. It's been Aquarium Monday.